The movie starts at the Flagstone City railway station, where we see three thuggish-looking men waiting for someone. A train arrives and a man steps off, playing a harmonica. Throughout the movie, he's known simply as Harmonica. Before the men can attack him, Harmonica kills all three of them. Meanwhile, we shift to another scene, where a man named Brett McBain is hunting with his young son. As they head home, he tells his daughter that today is a day to celebrate. She asks, "Are we going to be rich?" McBain replies, "Maybe, but it'll take time." You see, McBain had sold all his property and bought this barren land, naming it Sweetwater. He had discovered that, despite the rough terrain, there was a lot of water underground. His plan was to build a station, and eventually an entire town here, because a railway line was supposed to pass through, and trains would need to stop for water. With official permission in hand, McBain hoped to become wealthy in the future. So McBain, thinking life's finally on the up and up, had just remarried a woman from New Orleans. And get this, she was a former prostitute. Yeah, talk about a past, but hey, love finds its way, right? She's supposed to arrive today, and McBain's eldest son is on his way to the station to pick her up. But just when you think things might go smoothly, bam, tragedy hits. Some mystery shooter knocks off McBain's daughter, then McBain himself, and for good measure takes out the eldest son too. The youngest son hears the gunshots, runs outside like it's the 4th of July, and, well, you can guess what happens next. Spoiler alert, he doesn't make it. The killer is Frank, a cold-blooded gunslinger hired by a railroad tycoon named Mr. Morton. And why? Because Morton's got his eyes on McBain's land. Of course, greed, it's a killer. Meanwhile, back at the Flagstone station, Jill McBain, the new wife, rolls into town expecting a warm welcome. But nope, nobody's there to greet her. So she asks a buggy driver to take her out to Sweetwater to meet her new hubby. The driver's like, "Oh, McBain? You mean that guy everyone thinks is off his rocker for buying that godforsaken land?" But hey, a fair's a fair, so off they go. They make a pit stop at a bar, and that's where we meet Cheyenne, a handcuffed outlaw who looks like trouble with a capital T. And guess who else is there? Yep, Harmonica. They exchange some words, probably something along the lines of, "You know who's crazier than McBain? You for showing up here." Turns out, those goons Harmonica took out at the station were Frank's men. Frank sent them to take care of some business while he was busy, murdering McBain and his whole family. Both Harmonica and Cheyenne get a glimpse of Jill, and it's like the Wild West version of Love at First Sight, or maybe more like Trouble at First Sight. Jill finally makes it to McBain's place, but instead of a warm welcome, she's met by a crowd and some bad news. McBain and his family have been wiped out. Devastated doesn't even cover it. After the funeral, everyone clears out, but Jill's not budging. She declares, "This is my home now." She stumbles upon some models in a box, a station, a bank, a post office, the whole shebang. Turns out, McBain was planning to turn this barren patch of land into a bustling town. Jill had no idea, but now she's holding on to his dream for dear life. One day, Cheyenne rolls up to Jill's place with the bright idea of robbing her, but after hearing her story, he has a change of heart. Maybe it's the coffee, maybe it's Jill's sad tale. Either way, he decides to skip the whole robbery thing and just takes off after his caffeine fix. Meanwhile, Harmonica is seen interrogating a man about Frank, asking, "Frank had set up a meeting with me at the station, so why didn't he show up?" The man says, "At that time, he was busy killing McBain and his family, right? So now he's putting all the blame on me, but I figured it all out." He shows up at Jill's place asking for water, probably more out of habit than thirst. But just as Jill's about to offer him some, Harmonica spots two armed goons lurking nearby. He tells Jill to hit the deck, and before you know it, bang, bang. Harmonica takes out both of them. They were Frank's guys, of course. Cheyenne's hanging back, watching all this go down like it's the best show in town. After the dust settles, Harmonica suggests Jill cut a deal with Frank. Because nothing says negotiation like a gunfight in your front yard. So Jill sets up a meeting through a middleman to get Frank and Harmonica together. The middleman trots off to tell Frank, who's riding along with Morton on a train. Harmonica, ever the persistent type, follows along and ends up on top of the train. But Frank's no fool. He spots Harmonica, grabs him, and ties him up faster than you can say bad idea. Frank's got this nagging suspicion that the middleman might have been double-crossing him with Harmonica, so what does he do? Yep, takes the guy out. No loose ends with Frank. Frank's itching to know why Harmonica's been trailing him like a shadow. But Harmonica, he's keeping his cards close to the vest, not saying a word. After all, a little mystery never hurt anyone. except maybe Frank. Meanwhile, Cheyenne's still on Harmonica's tail, proving he's not just another outlaw, but a determined one at that. He sneaks onto the train and, in classic Cheyenne fashion, takes out everyone on board except for Morton. Morton, who's looking more like death warmed over, gets a pass. Cheyenne figures the guy's got one foot in the grave already, so why bother? Back at Sweetwater, Jill finally receives all the materials McBain had ordered to turn this dusty patch of land into something resembling a town. One of the workers shows her a wooden plank McBain wanted engraved, but he's clueless about what it's supposed to say. Jill's gears start turning, and she remembers the model she found in McBain's box. She decides to have the station's name engraved on the plank, starting to see the big picture McBain had in mind. Jill's slowly turning into a small-town architect, piece by piece, putting together her late husband's dream. But before she can break out the blueprints, Frank barges in and takes her with him. He recognizes her right away as the former prostitute from New Orleans, and you can bet he's got a smirk on his face. Meanwhile, Harmonica and Cheyenne show up at Jill's place, only to find she's gone. Harmonica lays it all out for Cheyenne. McBain's grand plan was to build a station and a whole town right here in Sweetwater because it's the only spot with water around. And in the Wild West, that's about as valuable as gold. So Harmonica and Cheyenne roll up their sleeves and start working on McBain's dream, turning Sweetwater into the town McBain always envisioned. Meanwhile, Frank's got his own ideas. He sweet-talks Jill into auctioning off her land, thinking he'll snag it for a steal. Jill agrees, but Frank's playing dirty. At the auction, his goons make sure no one else dares to bid, so he can scoop up the land at a bargain price. Just when it looks like Frank's got it in the bag, Harmonica shows up and casually drops the highest bid, leaving everyone speechless, especially Frank. But how's Harmonica gonna pay for it? He's got that covered too. He drags Cheyenne along, saying there's a hefty bounty on his head. Turns out this whole auction thing was just part of Harmonica's master plan. Frank's been outplayed. After the auction, Frank tries to strike a deal with Harmonica to buy the land, but Harmonica's not selling. As Frank walks away, thinking about his next move, his own men suddenly turn on him. They've been bought off by Morton. Talk about betrayal. But before they can finish the job, Harmonica steps in and saves Frank. Why? Because Harmonica's got a score to settle and wants to be the one to take Frank down. Frank, now seriously annoyed and more than a little paranoid, goes to confront Morton. When he arrives, he finds all of Morton's men dead, and Morton himself barely hanging on by a thread. Morton doesn't make it much longer, leaving Frank to head back to Sweetwater, where he knows the final showdown is waiting for him. In the grand finale, it's just Frank and Harmonica staring each other down like it's high noon. Frank, frustrated and desperate, demands to know who Harmonica really is. Harmonica, ever the man of mystery, tells him he'll get his answer right before he dies. Talk about dramatic timing. Cue the flashback. We see a young boy, shaking and scared, being forced by Frank to hold up his older brother, who's got a noose around his neck. Frank, in his twisted way, shoves a harmonica into the boy's mouth, making him stand there while his brother dangles above the ground. Eventually, the older brother can't take it anymore and pushes the boy away, choosing to hang himself rather than put his sibling through more torture. Flash forward to the present. Harmonica shoots Frank, delivering justice with cold precision. As Frank lies there, gasping his last breaths, Harmonica calmly walks over and places that same harmonica in Frank's mouth. It's the final haunting reminder of the past, bringing everything full circle as Frank realizes exactly who he's been dealing with all along. It's a mic drop moment, only with a harmonica. As things wind down, Harmonica says goodbye to Jill, promising her that he'll return to see the town when it's up and running. It's a bittersweet moment, but there's hope in the air. Meanwhile, Cheyenne, who took a bullet earlier, knows his time's about up. He quietly tells Harmonica he's not going to make it and asks him to turn away, so he doesn't have to die with someone watching. Harmonica, respecting his friend's last wish, does as he's asked. Cheyenne slips away, and Harmonica, ever the Lone Ranger, takes Cheyenne's body with him. As Harmonica rides off, we switch back to Sweetwater, where Jill's hard at work. She's out there with the workers, helping build the railway and the town that McBain had dreamed of. It's tough work, but Jill's determined, and you can see that McBain's dream is finally coming to life. The movie ends with the sight of the town slowly coming together, a symbol of perseverance and the legacy left behind. McBain's vision is becoming reality, proving that even in the Wild West, dreams can come true if you've got enough grit and a little bit of luck. That's it for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe to watch more interesting recap videos. Thanks for watching.